Greetings, Darklings, from across the interwebs. It is once again I, Precious Ken, the Duchess, here brought to you today for the Sounds and Shadows interview with my new Rebel t-shirt that came to me from Anya of Ayatoya. So shout out to her and thank you for this lovely gear. You can get this on her webpage. I have, as always, a very exciting guest. I'm really geeked for this. This is a person who, to me, is really breaking the ground and on the forefront of what's going on in modern EBM, EDM, electronic music. And I have with us from Electronic Substance Abuse, Jamie. How are you doing, man?
Hello, I'm very well. A little rough after a big Friday night, but feeling good. I've been napping all day, so I'm getting there. I'm moving slow up the scale of from disgusting to reasonable.
That is the key, is to, it doesn't matter if you get after it and drink, it's just that you have to sleep through the hangover. Just don't wake up till like 11:30 and you're good. You know, that's.
Well, I have a way of dealing with my hangovers, and that is to clean the house from top to bottom. I don't know if anybody else does that, but it gives me like a sense of control.
I don't.
My body's not feeling.
I lay around like a lazy piece of shit, but Rachel is famous for, I don't know how, she'll just spring awake. Like we'll get after it till 3 a.m. and she'll spring awake at 6:30 or 7 and just start cleaning shit and making breakfast. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like that, how are you even alive right now?
She's like, because I'm still drunk.
I think that's it, because then a few hours later, she takes a nap and goes out for like 5 hours. That's, you know.
She's got it down. We need to learn from her.
Well, that's a plan. That's a better way to be. All right. Let's talk about, you've got a lot of exciting stuff that's come out lately and gone on, but I want to start out for maybe some of our listeners that aren't as familiar with you. How did this project start for you, and how did you get into this style of music and just say, this is it, man, this is my voice, this is me?
I mean, for the people who do know me, it's probably the the 100th time I've told this, but it's absolutely not a problem that I am, because obviously there's going to be a big group of people who have never heard about me. But initially I was kind of brought screaming and kicking into the metal world because my dad was a big metal fan. So I was like, picked up a guitar when I was 13, a Charvet bright blue guitar, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to play guitar, and got in a couple of metal bands, a couple of death metal bands, a couple of black metal bands, and then
realized... Is there any footage of this that we can find somewhere?
So apparently there is a video kicking around of me singing in my school band when I was 14, and it's on VCR, and I'm trying to get my parents to find that video, maybe just so I can like maybe destroy it so that nobody else could see it. But it might be okay, it might be reasonable, but I was not a great singer, but I was 14 at the time.
You've challenged me as a journalist. Now I'm going to find that fucking video. This is
well, that means you have to pay my parents a visit, which is weird but cool. Like knock knock, here's Ken.
So you started out there and you were doing metal, and we're going to find that video of from your parents. I'm going to get a call into them and talk to your family. How did that transition then happen into the electronic world?
I kind of realized that being in a full band probably wasn't for me when I was younger. I had certain visions, and I think unless everybody shares that vision, it's very difficult to get up on the ground and keep at it constantly. But also the reliability of members, I struggled with. I was like, if I can just rely on myself, this is going to be a lot easier to consistently make music. So I started getting into electronic and industrial music probably when I was about maybe like 18, 19. I think it was Millennium by Frontline Assembly, which was the first, industrial whatever that I saw. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, this is something. And then I went to a couple of festivals. I saw like Sonar playing live at Infest, who were like, the Dirk Ivins thing. And it just felt like this huge wall of sound just like smashing me in the face. And I really liked how hypnotic it was. And even without being on drugs, it was just you just felt really transcendental because it was just this rolling rhythm going on.
Yeah,
So I was kind of like, oh, well, this is even heavier than metal. Like, this is more intense than metal music.
sure.
So I took myself off to the nearest secondhand store and bought like a crappy drum machine and then plugged it into my old guitar, distortion pedals, and started making really, really simple, boring beats and being like, well, I'm enjoying this. And then it's just very slowly worked up from there. My sound has changed a lot in the last 17 years. It
Sure.
used to be a lot dirtier, um, but I still try and keep that. I still try and keep what made my sound unique, but also bring in all the other influences that I kind of constantly sapping up on a day-to-day basis and really trying to, push the envelope and think, what hasn't been done? What can I do? How can I make something that is different, kind of thing?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that is something that you achieve in particular with your music is because I'm gonna level with you. A lot of times metal in particular, but EBM and a lot of that stuff, especially the total bass crushing, like shaking your nether regions shit, is a lot for me. I mean, it's just a lot of intensity for it. And I think one of the things I fell in love with your band right off the bat is you really know the exact line that you can push a raging, bubbling, smash your fucking face in intensity without quite crossing it into the point where I find it too much. Like I think you have a real ear for that of pushing right up to the limit of where the boundary is, and I think that's what makes it effective.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So my first big introduction to you was Burial Tent. That was the
Hmm.
first album that I reviewed of you, and that was a bit late in the game for you. You'd had quite a few albums before that.
Yeah,
Um,
15 years worth.
yeah, yeah. Tell me, because I mean, in the modern scene, I feel like that it was a page that was turned for you and a bit different in how you were doing it. Tell me a little bit about that album and putting it together and why it was important to you.
So, so I reached a certain level and kind of plateaued probably, right from this maybe third album up till the end of the Themes trio.
Hmm.
Um, and then I put out That Beast on NGP, which is my first full length release on NGP. And That Beast, suddenly I saw a hell of a lot of attention and traction.
Yeah,
Um, and I wouldn't say it's that much different to my other albums. It's just maybe less um, cohesive. Like it was less like, okay, let's be really marginalized by the concept of the album. And I just kind of went, fuck the concept. I'll just write, 11 great songs.
yeah,
Um, and I got a lot of attention from that. I was like, okay, well, this is fine as long as I'm keeping it true to myself and I'm keeping all my old school fans, then this is cool. And then I was like, okay, well, Burial 10 is going to have to be huge. Like, I'm going to have to surpass That Beast. Um, and yeah, I really sat down with the album, like, I'm going to make the best thing I've ever done. And this is going to be, I'm even right down to the production of the physical album. Like, it's going to be an 8-panel digipack with loads of art. And, I'm going to make this because, I'm, the albums I'm in love with are the big albums with all the artwork kind of thing. So I was like, okay, let's make this a real artistic product. Um, and obviously, a couple of videos came with that album. Um, so yeah, I just really attacked it, and I was like, okay, let's make this really specific and unique product, and it seems to have done pretty well. Probably not surpassed That Beast. I just don't know. It's very difficult as an artist to know like what's going on in the outside world and how you've been perceived. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you only hear like bits, and you only know that people are inviting to festivals, and you think, oh, it must be doing pretty well then. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's really about breaking out into the bigger market, and I think I've just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it happens.
yeah. No, I think one of the things to me that was really popular. I mean, Burial 10, it's a full length album, and that's something that especially in this genre, you don't see a ton of now. Everything now is about the singles and not a
EPs, yeah.
single cohesive. And so I love what you kind of said a minute ago that it does have a little bit of the feeling, though, of a lot of singles that kind of work together and flow together, but they are their individual stories, each one kind of, and not necessarily trying to have a overarching theme in a big way to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to talk, like, we've all been affected by COVID and the world shutting down. And I know that was hard. And you were getting ready at that time to do a tour, right? When everything first was kicking off. What have you been kind of doing with yourself? You've written a lot of music in that downtime and gone through. Tell me a little bit about that process and your day to day and what we have to be excited about coming forward.
hmm So yeah, I decided in February last year, February 2020, I was like, I'm giving up my job. I'm gonna do this full time. You know, I can make enough money from playing live remixes, but alongside doing commercial work, voiceover work, cinema trailers, I can do this.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, okay, let's 2020, let's get the album out, which came out in February. Let's create, pretty much a world tour. Let's do America and Europe and America again and then Europe again or something. And then,
Yeah.
it got pretty much into the middle stages of organizing all of that. And then obviously, the news slowly started to seep through that things weren't looking so bright, especially for people who wanted to travel. So I just got the one gig last year and it kind of came fortuitously. Maybe that's the wrong word, but um, I lost a lot of my hearing last year as well, which I'm sure you probably heard about. Um, so it came in the period of when COVID was probably the worst of the first wave for about 4 months. So I would have had to cancel those shows anyway because I couldn't hear.
Sure.
So it kind of all came at the same time. It was like let's just deal with all this shit at the same time, kind of thing. But alongside that, I was like, okay, well, I'm here. Um, I have the tools and abilities to still use this time effectively and creatively. So I decided to really work on music videos, and um, because I wasn't working as much, I was like, okay, let's really drill down to how I can explain my vision properly, creatively. So I released the Scone EP.
Yeah.
Um, and mixing that was weird with little hearing, but it still managed to work out pretty good. And like everybody jokes about you did two music videos for one EP. And I'm like, well, it felt right. It felt like the right decision. They were both strong songs. Let's do it.
Yeah. And strong
Um,
videos, both. And I think the other one on this too. So that was one of my other things that made me fall in love. You did the song with Kailyn on that, which is
yes,
uh,
yes.
I'm a huge fan of Corlick's and hers. Um, and that video was just epic. It was just so it felt like those old school big budget MTV videos, you know, back in the 90s or back in the day, and it had that like a movie being shot. It had that feel. What was that like working with her, and how involved were you in the conception level of the video, or did you have a director or anything, or was this more DIY, like you took it on yourself?
Um, so so working with Kaylin is always a pleasure because she's just Kaylin is Kaylin. Like I've never met anybody like Kaylin. First of all, she's an incredible singer an
Yeah.
incredible musician who has this ability to just find exactly the right melody, vocal hook. I mean, she's what I would class as a professional musician. She's not
Yeah.
like I'm not going to put other people down, but there's a lot of people out there that make music. Where to me, she's a professional musician. She hears something, she's like, like Lady Gaga will sit there and listen to a piano line and be like, ah, that's exactly what Kaylin would do.
Yeah, she
She's
has perfect pitch. I've talked to her about
yeah,
that before. She's one of the
ab-
few people that just actually has that as a singer. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm very lucky to know her. So yeah, working with her is a dream. Obviously, we did a You Are Not Safe Here
mhm.
on Burial 10, and then Eat There Young. With regards to the concept, I write, direct, produce, and edit all my videos. Well, that's not entirely true. The last video, which is the one that's just coming out in about a week, That's the only one I've edited myself, but every other video I've, written, directed, and produced it because I don't want to give that control to anybody else, and I don't need to. Like, I can do
Yeah.
it.
If you've got those skills, I mean, that's awesome. And it does, I think that's one of the things about your videos that really speaks to me is they seem very cohesive. Like I've talked before with other artists that, had a director for a video and they would say, yeah, it's a great video and I like it. But sometimes I
But it's
wonder,
not
did they
me.
even listen to my song before they made this video? And that's never a feeling I get from your videos. It just the words, the music, the tone always matches the picture of what I'm seeing so perfectly. So that makes sense that that's all coming from you, and that's awesome. You have the skills for that. I'm gonna have to get some skills someday.
I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of skills, Ken. That's not actually 100% true. What I said, Like Me was the one video that I commissioned Mariella in Japan to do,
Oh,
because I wasn't in Japan, and I was like, yeah, let's here is what I'd like for the video. I'm gonna let you run away with it. But yeah, everything else, I really want full control. I mean, when I write the music, I'm visualizing stuff as I'm writing anyway, and it's very important for me to be able to stamp ESA all over every kind of different fiber of the whole product. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Just trusting somebody else to do it is just, other than Mariella, who I really trusted because I've seen a lot of her work and we were very much on the same wavelength, and I couldn't be in Tokyo to do it. Everything else, I'm like, no, I really want this to smell of me. Like, I don't want anybody else to put their smell on it.
I would have my stink all over that. I like it. um, tell me a little bit here. So you talked about the newest EP and some of the videos that you had going for it. This next round, you're doing another video for this, but is it going to have another EP or full album? And hopefully, is that going to lead to a tour?
So this is going to be a single for the track I Detach. It's going to have 3 remixes on it. I'll tell you right now who those remixes are. That's Morris Black, who's my good label friend. Mechanical Vein, who's a really cool upcoming kind of industrial drum and bass project from London, and also Mr.Kitty, which is probably going to blow a lot of people's brains actually when they hear that, because that is a very, very different remix for ESA, but very, very good. Because it's Forrest, isn't it? He knows what he's doing.
And it's Mr. Kitty. And that is such a weird mixture. I think that's one of the things in particular. I mean, Negative Gain, we're pretty good friends, and I get a lot of their stuff sent to me and talk about them a lot. They're one of my favorite labels. I think one of the things that sets Negative Gain apart from a lot of the other labels I love for all kinds of different reasons is how eclectic it is. You have, you on there, Mr. Kitty, Grab Your Face, just such a wide variety of different sounds, yet it all mixes together. So when you guys do projects like this and do a remix of each other, you're really getting a completely different off the wall flavor. And you talk about somebody who's a pro again, like Forrest, that's another person who, to me, they just sit down and crank out 40-song albums like it's nothing, and every song on it is fucking good. They kind of piss me off that way with how good they are.
I can understand that. I mean, something like Mr. Kitty just says, I think it's natural and it's within his veins and his fiber just to be able to pump that kind of stuff out. And it is completely different to ESA. And I like that. And I'll never do what people expect me to do. I will never, ever submit to somebody else's idea of what ESA should be. And I'm 100% happy to go completely off the wall and go, okay, well, let's do a synth pop remix of this track. Because the rebel in me just almost wants to do it on purpose, just to be like, you will not pigeonhole what I'm trying to do.
Right.
I saw people call me, power electronics and power noise, and I love that. I love power noise. I think that is the very basis of my foundation of sound. But I will never just coast on that and be like, okay, well, I'll just record 11 power electronic songs, So I want to cover all markets because I want to prove I can do all of it, and that's why there is, the rap track on Burial 10.
Yeah.
That's why there is a Mr. Kitty remix. That's why there is orchestral pieces during my tracks, because I can do this, and if I can do it, I'm going to do it. Do you know? And I know it sounds incredibly pretentious, but I'm not going
I
to restrict
support,
myself.
yeah, I support being incredibly pretentious. I think it's that's noteworthy to do. No, and I think you're right because I mean, if you're going to call yourself an artist, the opposite of I guess that part of being pretentious in the fact that you're always wanting to push yourself to never say this is the plateau of where I'm at. This is what I could do and I fit inside this box. What's the point then? You know what I mean? You
What
you
is the
should
point?
always be driving towards another wall.
Hmm.
And I think to me, it's another thing I like about your music is it is music that feels like it's always smashing walls. And
Thank you.
both in the tone and in the concept of it when I hear you talk about it. So I,
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
that. And I think that matches really well.
Thank you.
Um, so you're gonna put out this new album coming up. You have the new video coming out.
Let's. So this is a new single.
Oh, it's just the single. Okay.
This is just a single for now. I
I
am.
got excited. I got carried away.
Yeah. I'm currently working on the album, but um, I can't tell you when that's going to be. If I'm being totally honest, I mean, I'm trying to. It's probably no secret anymore that I'm trying to set up a US tour at the moment for November. But as you can imagine, that's quite difficult.
It is. It's I've been feeling positive lately, and I've heard about a couple of shows that are starting to happen. I know here in Michigan, they haven't really started officially booking anything yet, but
Hmm.
hopefully we're going to get to that point soon, or I might officially lose my mind. I might, if I can't see some live music soon, I might go over the edge.
Yeah, it's a line, isn't it? It's a line.
It,
Like we're all like desperate to start living normal life, but we're also, or if we're not, then we should be, being responsible and knowing what the right decision is. So
yes.
it's all about straddling the line and trying to judge everything right. Excuse me, I don't know what that was. But yeah, it's all about judging the situation correctly. And I think
Right.
November is reasonable. It's a reasonable expectation, both in the UK and America, to be traveling, but it's not definite. And until it's looking a little bit more confirmed, it's going to be difficult to really go. Yeah, this is definitely happened. All I can say to people out there in America that want an ESA show that I'm trying my hardest, and I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on right in that. And it is tough. We're all hungry for this, but at the same time, safety is extremely important and not handling it right, doing it in its right time and following science will just mean that we push this out another year or 2 year. And that's the last thing we want. I would rather be a little patient now than have that driven into an even further time when normal life and music can't happen,
Hundred
so
percent, 100%.
tell me a little bit then well, here's one thing, okay, by the accent, if people haven't noticed, is from the UK, I believe, and I'm one of the Americans who's a pretty big follower of Premier League, and so this might make the interview really really awkward at this point. Do you have a Premier League team that you follow, or just fuck all that sports shit?
So I don't follow anybody, but I used to be a big Chelsea fan. How do you feel about that, Ken?
I didn't know if there was a way that I could, have a bigger bro crush on you right now, but now I do
Chelsea your
because
team?
Chelsea is my team. I am an
No way.
adamant Chelsea supporter, and
Okay.
we're
Okay, let me ask you a question then.
okay.
How long did it take Roberto Di Matteo to score the goal in the 1997 FA Cup final?
Now I don't remember. I'll be honest. I got into um, Premier League football in Chelsea. It wasn't when I was growing up. I mean, America, we have baseball, basketball, football, whatnot. So I got into
Mm,
it in college later on, and we had a pub here that a bunch of us would show up to, and in the afternoons they would play Premier League
right.
games that were coming from over in England,
Yeah.
and it just became our ritual, and I kind of got into it and stayed into it after that.
What
But I
made you
will,
start liking Chelsea?
it's pretty random usually for most American fans how they just pick up a team, but I believe it's because they were who Bernard Sumner was into.
Okay.
And at the time, like I saw him do an interview from New Order and talking about, and I was like, okay, yeah. And then saw their logo and the play. And I was just like, okay, that's my team. I'm all in. And then I just went with it, bought Chelsea gear, and just became a Chelsea fan and started watching and following
Wow.
them. Also, I think it's because a lot of the people in America, if they are football fans, are Manchester United. So, of course, I wanted to be whoever was against Manchester United.
Yeah. So do me a favor after the interview, try and Google Roberto Di Matteo,
Uh-huh.
FA Cup final 1997. It'll blow your mind.
I'm ready for that. That'll be end of the interview. That's what I'll do today. They have a lot of them, the old matches on there on YouTube. So maybe I'll be able to even see a good portion of the match.
Yeah, hopefully. But I don't really follow football much now, just because I've got quite an addictive personality, like all of us. And if I start watching football, I'll watch a little bit too much, and it's just gonna
All in.
wipe out all my productivity. Yeah, that's why I just don't play computer games like since I was 16, because that would be my life over if I did.
You know, I try to, but it seems like I never have any time anymore between a review page, a band, a job, a house, and adulting. Is
Yeah,
where's my video game time? Maybe I'll get some today. I'll try. You know.
I hope so, man.
What else have you been doing though? Than to keep yourself sane during the time of lockdown and I mean, I know you've been very productive and working on music, but what are some of the other things you do to keep yourself from climbing up the walls?
Honestly, this is a really boring answer. I work so much because I'm doing obviously ESA, but um, I'm on flexible furlough working for a company, so I'm still doing 3 days a week for them. I will go into what that is because I don't think anybody really needs to know.
Fair
Um,
enough.
um, but also, like, I'm doing like commercial music work and remixes, and honestly, there is no point in time in which I don't have like at least 4 or 5 projects I need to finish. So keeping sane is the only problem is if I don't see humans for like a week, and that sometimes does happen because I'm like trapped away in my studio that starts to smell. I mean, like there are days go by where I forget to eat or urinate because I'm just like just getting down with something, and I'm like hyper focused, and then I realize, oh, maybe you should see a human being.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
then, I make sure I meet up with somebody outside. I go for a walk, and that is keeping me sane. So it's just straddling the line again, isn't it?
No, it's true. See, my problem is that my thing to do to calm myself is cooking. Usually, I do a lot of
And then you
chefing
have
and
to
all
eat
that.
it.
Exactly. And so I don't ever forget to eat, and that's how that happens, So, but you know what? I enjoy it. It's fun, and it gives me an excuse to, like you said, if I haven't seen anybody in a while, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm cooking right now. Are you hungry?" And zoop, someone shows up over at the door, and I set up on the patio table outside and get a chance to see somebody and eat some food I made.
Your
So
food must be good. I'm looking forward to sampling that one with tour.
I told you when you come over here on tour, I always feed every band that comes through. I got you. Trust me.
Just make sure there's some vegetables in there, 'cause you know what it's like on tour. Pizza every night,
It
pretty
is
much.
true. Well, and Colin and a lot of the people close to me are vegetarian, so I'm a very good vegetarian cook too. I'm not one myself, but I
Yeah,
like the challenge of trying to cook something really unique and interesting, but kind of cutting the crutch of having meat be the center of the dish out of it. I find
yeah,
that an interesting challenge.
yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk specifically now about the new video that you have coming
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
And I want you to set the stage for us. I think to me, when I saw this, I said to you, this is one of the best music videos I've seen in recent memory. It's powerful, it's stark. The effects, kind of how you mentioned earlier before we started interviewing, it's not a lot of CGI or anything. It's very physical and visceral effects, but there still has a surrealness to them.
Mm.
And set the song up and the video up for me, telling me what you were excited about doing this, and what, kind of like you said earlier, were the walls that you were trying to push with this song and video.
So, so I visited this huge, like antiques and salvage warehouse out
Oh,
near where my brother lives. And my brother walked me over to a section of the outside areas. He was like, "You need to check out these 1950s mannequins. That they're amazing." So I had a look at them, and like instantly, my brain's going, like, "How do I? What is? Why do I
how
didn't
that
make something
works.
out of this? What's my story? Can I make a
Mhm.
video out of this? Can I make a video out of this?" And yeah, I decided to go home and put pen to paper or fingers to laptop, and I was like, "How do I? What's my story? How do I build like a really cohesive story out of this, other than just look at filming the mannequins themselves?" So I came up with a story that I don't want to spoil too much in case anybody hasn't seen it yet, but I came up with a decent storyline which involved, somebody somebody exemplifying what being completely detached is.
Yeah,
And I wanted to show how that person became detached, what their trauma story is. And then obviously the other side of it is a lot about control. I really wanted to bring in the message and a bit of a commentary on a subplot of control and how there's a lot of people out there that like to break people down and build them back up. Um,
yeah.
Probably mainly men to women, if we're being completely
Right.
blunt about it.
I mean, it
Um,
is pretty documented since the beginning of history. I don't think you're going out a limb there saying,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's there. It's in front of us every single day. I mean, there's manipulation on all sides, but I think the majority
when you talk
of
about a power structure like that and how it happens, like you said, breaking down and but yeah, I that grooming aspect,
yeah.
definitely.
It's funny again because we're seeing cycles of things coming to the forefront and coming to attention online, which is very important, um, obviously. And then after I wrote the script and we're about to start filming, a load more stuff just came out on the news. There was like the kidnapping and murder of a girl here in the UK. I don't know if you guys got to hear about that, but it was a policeman that did that. So again, it was like constantly like, this is really a thing.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I had to really make sure I treated the subplot subject very sensitively. Um, and there were times when I thought, am I going too far with this? Is my commentary too much? Is it a little bit too intense? But
Yeah.
I think it's just about on the cusp, and I think it's just about right as a message to be putting out there, while still telling the fabricated story of the gentleman who's detached.
Right. I think
Um,
that's really interesting, real quick, the way that you said that, because I think that's really important to think about. And maybe viewers don't always think about that when they see a music video, but how much thought goes into you want to tell this story because it's an important issue.
mhm.
You want to get this in front of people and say this is something you need to think about, to reflect on in your life and the people around you, and trying to make our world better. But at the same time, for the people who've suffered this trauma, you don't want to be another instigator or trigger of their trauma. And finding that place between trying to do the right thing is a really tough, morally gray area as an artist, but I really like hearing the thought and intent that you put into trying to find that line in your video.
I mean, something that I feel really strongly about is I think it's really crass glorifying things for exposure or
Yeah,
rumor, or when people talk about going viral and using a subject matter that is very um, in full focus across the world right now. When people use that as a tool to extend what they're doing, I find that a bit crass. So for me, it wasn't about that, and I had to be very careful that it would never be seen as that because that kind of pisses me off. Which was what I had to be very careful with the young. So I wrote that script before all the riots, and then the riots happened. And I was like, please be aware this script was written 4 months before these riots, and um, you know, I, it is a very crass thing when I find bands using footage from things that are going on right now. I'm
sure.
like, I find it really lazy. I'm like, make your own footage, make your own story, tell your own story, use the commentary of what's going on in the world as a like a message, but just you've got to tell your own story. You can't borrow this trauma or this anger or this world issue to make you like more interesting or make your product more viral. It's just I find it very
I
lazy.
love that. And I love you saying that because I think that's another thing to think about is because I've seen bands do that, you know, and when you're
Yeah, so
putting in actual footage of, say, at the riot here recently, or
it's
um,
just so lazy.
but that's a person. Like there's
Yeah.
a difference between you telling a story and putting a character out and maybe having a bit of metaphor in it with these mannequins or that. And the difference between that and a live human being that was there suffering that trauma, these are not the same
Yeah,
thing.
that's not yours to borrow. It's not your
Exactly.
property. That's somebody's trauma and somebody's pain. That's you've got no right to take it. And I
Yeah.
feel quite strongly about that. But I think a lot of bands just don't think about it. That's the problem. I wouldn't say it's with any intent. They're just a bit
Sure.
naive to the sensitivity of it.
Just
I
not
think.
wanting to think about it. So that's I thought that was important. I loved calling that out, that you using that as a active thought towards how you put that together. I think that's important. And I think that's an important message to say to other bands, maybe younger or coming up, like maybe if you're doing a video in your 20s or something right now, you're not thinking in those terms, kind of like we talked about earlier, but you should be, because there's going to
Yeah.
come a time 10 years from now when you might need to answer for that. And it's better that people start thinking about these things in a wider perspective sooner rather than later.
Or something terrible might happen to you and you find somebody else taking glorification of it. So then you
Yeah,
might realize
exactly.
how insensitive it is. So yeah, but with regards to the effects, I hired three makeup artists for this one. That's the first time I've hired like
Yeah.
professional level makeup artists. I don't want any CGI. I wanted to do the old school hard way, and it was hard.
Oh yeah.
It was very difficult. It was one of the hardest things I've ever been involved with. It was definitely the most difficult part of the video was making convincing effects, basically. Because I like much more about subplot. I'm not kind of an effects kind of guy, but it felt right if it was done right. And I think
Yeah.
we just about managed it. But a lot of the surrealness that you mentioned, that's more in the way that we shot. I purposefully wanted to shoot it in quite a surreal way. I wanted, because that's kind of my taste in films and cinema anyways, quite surreal cinematography. So I really wanted to make sure that, everything was like the way the camera was panned, the angles we worked at, the speed of the shot, things like this, all these things to make it feel really unsettling is,
Yeah.
is to me very interesting. So when I make a music video now, I'm always thinking, how can I make this shot more interesting? How can it make you feel a certain way? And mix that with the content, with good content, and you're pretty much there.
I
Excuse me.
think to me that was another thing when I saw this video that I found really powerful is it wasn't everything that was jammed into the shot. It was the way you use space that had nothing in it that created this kind of creepy effect. And it made me think of, there's definitely a horror movie aspect to it. And I think that's why it worked really well in that. But I think more of like old, like Vincent Price type horror with just, it isn't that a big monster is on the screen. It's that a
Mm.
subtle rustling of the curtain is happening on the other side of the room that just builds this tension. And I felt like that's what a lot of this was by using so much space and the manning and the things in it. So no, that was very, very cool. And I'm excited. We're going to play this video at the end. And I think our viewers are going to be blown away with what they're seeing and hearing here in the song.
I
I
hope
did
so.
want to I did want to ask you before we go. I always like to ask our guests when we have them on. We're a music review page. That's what we do, and we love talking about and lifting up new music. Tell me about three things that you're listening to right now that gets you excited.
So I'm currently listening to Morris Black's new release because he's my bro, and he's my bro because he makes good music. It's not because I like him. That's a joke.
No,
He's a great guy.
absolutely incredible. And
Yeah,
we just had him on for an interview, so that should be coming out very soon before yours. So, and I
yeah,
think he talks about you on it. So, oh, that's cute. That's
beautiful. Um, What else am I listening to? I'm listening to Clipping's most recent album.
Oh, tell me
Um,
about it. I don't know that one.
you don't know Clipping?
No, I,
You've never heard of Clipping?
no.
Wow, okay. It's
Everybody always
basically
assumes that I literally know every band that played a garage show in 1997. So there's stuff I miss all the time.
Clipping are a trio from LA. It's two kind of experimental electronic producers and then a rapper. I'm really sorry I've forgotten his name. I'm so bad with names.
That's all
But
right.
we have an LA-based rapper who's now, I think he's acting in a few Netflix films. He was the lead in Snowpiercer, I believe. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I know the guy you're talking about.
yeah,
I
but
never heard him rap before. I didn't know he was a rapper. I just knew him
well,
from the show and the movies.
I mean, wait till you check him out.
Yeah.
He has a couple of songs where it kind of defies belief that he can rap that fast with that well pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of the soundscapes that they create, but also his talent as a rapper. I think he's probably got to be one of the most kind of creative, experimental,
That
talented
sounds awesome.
rappers I've heard. So you should definitely check out Clipping.
I'm gonna look that up for sure. I'll put links to all these in the video down below when we post it.
Lovely. And then I listen to the Doors a lot. I'm a big fan of Jim Morrison and the Doors, so that's kind of constantly on in the car. LA Woman and albums like that.
Now, see, we had that moment earlier
Have
about
I wrecked it?
yeah, about but now I fear I'm gonna ruin it when I
Okay.
say Ray Manzarek is the true talent of the Doors, and without him,
Oh
I
yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
just don't know that they'd be Deep Purple. Like I get
yeah.
Jim Morrison is a big deal, and I think he was an incredible frontman. But it always kind of gets me when people go off about Jim Morrison when I'm like, yeah, the reason why the Doors didn't sound like every other fucking band in the 60s and 70s is because of Ray Manzarek. He was what made them sound truly unique and interesting, unlike anything that had ever happened before.
I'm definitely not disagreeing with you. So
Okay, good. I thought,
I don't think the bromance is dead yet. The thing about the Doors is that they were all incredible musicians. That was the
that's true.
difference. It wasn't just about charisma. Jim Morrison was the charisma. He
True.
had a great voice,
He did.
right? That's pretty much it. I'm not
I
even a
mean,
big
he was a
fan.
hot dude too, dancing. He was a great showman. He was one of
Yeah,
those
he
people that
was.
would like put on you couldn't not look at him. I'll give him
Hmm.
that for sure.
Hmm.
And lyrically and poetically, he was very good.
I think poetically he might be a little bit overrated. If I'm being completely honest, some of his stuff is kind of like, but as a charismatic singer, and I love the tone of his voice. Think you know, he's very special. But yeah, the musicianship in the Doors is insane. You know, when you listen to some of the organ solos, that's the magic, isn't it?
I like Soul Kitchen, and there are a lot of songs like that. I grew up on that were a big deal. Same thing, Rolling Stones for me. I was a big classic rock fan of stuff like that, especially when I was younger, and it had a huge influence on me. But I think that's really cool that that's the third one that you call out is the Doors, and we got to talk about Ray Manzarek. That's awesome.
I just think it's important. If you're a musician, you should really. I mean, this again sounds really pretentious, but yeah, if you ever get a chance, you should really be quite eclectic with what you listen to, and you know, those big bands were big for a reason because they had a lot of creativity and a lot of like vision. You know, I mean, if any artist or band wants to know like the textbook almost for being successful, you just look at David Bowie. Like that is the way you will figure out how to successfully navigate these waters. Obviously, with different rules because you know the internet wasn't around initially during his period. But I mean, even up to his last dying days, he was encompassing that and using that to his advantage.
Sure.
So,
I think
so
one of the biggest things when you talk about Bowie is say like the Rolling Stones, who again I'm a big fan of, and like the Rolling Stones, but the Rolling Stones were the Rolling Stones from like the early 60s through 2015, right? I mean, they're
mhm.
playing the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas Bowie was a guy who was also relevant for 6 decades, but was cutting edge new music, like not just doing different genres of what was hip at the time or came along. He was doing cutting edge industrial when it was starting. He was doing cutting edge glam when it was starting. He was, you know, synthwave, all of those things. He was on the front end, experimental end of so many big movements in music in the last 6 decades. So
Yeah, he was a very intelligent man. I don't think it was a case of reading the room. It was almost setting up the room.
right, that's exactly what I'm saying is, you know, he was, yeah, paving the way on it. And how the hell do you do that? That just seems intense. And having one good decade worth of ideas to me seems like an impressive feat, and to just reinvent yourself 5 or 6 times is, I can't even fathom it.
Yeah, we can but hope and look up to stars like that, and just hope that there is a small part of us that has that a little bit of that creativity in us. But yeah, he's just a god, isn't he? He's a deity, as far as I'm concerned.
He's something else for sure. All right, well, to close up here, why don't you introduce the video that you're going to play, and we will roll it. We're going to be excited for more updates from you and ESA in the future, and we'll keep everyone up to date. And I'm really hoping for that tour. You got to get here. I will feed you. I will be your street team. My 43-year ass will be out there handing out flyers in Detroit and stuff to get you going. So I'm excited for that. Set up the video for us.
Yeah, so this is the video for the new ESA single I Detach, which is going to be released on the 14th of May. I hope you guys all enjoy. And yeah, this single will be available on all the platforms where you would expect it to be available: Apple Music, Spotify, Bandcamp, etc. So enjoy.
All right, everybody, check out ESA on Bandcamp, and as always, keep it fucking dark, yo.